Welcome to Midnight's Tale. Here, where the unknown takes its darkest form, we unveil stories that dare not be spoken in the light of day. Stories that creep beneath your skin and shivers down your spine. I am your guide, Midnight, your storyteller through the chilling depths of fear and uncertainty. Tonight, our tale will take you on a journey beyond the veil of reality, into the world where fear reigns supreme, where loss leaves scars that never fade, and where reflection reveals the twisted truths lurking within. Enjoy, and have a terrifyingly good night.
I am Vladislav III, Prince of Wallachia, though the world would come to revile me as Dracula, a name etched in blood. I was born on a bitter winter's night in 1431, when the peaks of the Carpathian Mountains knifed into an iron-gray sky. My father was Vlad Dracula, a member of the Knightly Order of the Dragon, sworn to defend Christianity against the encroaching might of the Ottoman Empire. Even as a child, I saw the perpetual clash of powers and faiths that would shape the course of my destiny. In the foreboding citadel of Sigissoara, where thick stones seemed to drink the candlelight, I spent my earliest years. My childhood memories are tainted by the ever-present dreads of that age, the ominous rumblings of the Ottoman war machine, the whiff of smoke from heretics' pyres, and my father's furrowed brow as he pored over dispatches of betrayals and attacks from Hungary. It was on my 11th birthday that the first great upheaval struck our family. My father was summoned to the court of the Sultan Murad to pay fealty. In a contemptuous act, my brother Radu and I were taken hostage, insurance against my father's wavering loyalties. For years we were imprisoned in Adrianople, subjected to the grandeurs and barbarisms of the Ottoman royal court. It was there, under the tutelage of the finest warriors and scholars, that I honed my skills in diplomacy, statecraft, and the brutal arts of war. But it was also there that the seeds of an all-consuming hatred were planted toward the Ottomans, who had ripped me from my home, and the world that had forsaken my family to such depravities. When we were at last released, I returned to find Wallachia even more consumed by chaos and bloodshed. My father and older brother had been brutally murdered by traitorous boyars seeking to usurp our throne. With ruthless determination, I extinguished the rebellious factions one by one, butchering any who dared resist my rightful claim. My ascent to the rule of Wallachia ushered in a new age of strength and darkness. I would brook no threats, no acts of sedition against my principality. Those foolish enough to raise arms against me were subjected to the terrifying deaths that would etch the moniker Vlad the Impaler into the annals of history. Let none doubt that in those years, I became as monstrous as any crisis demanded. When the Hungarians and traitorous Dynasty clan moved to depose me, I had their families impaled by the hundreds on stakes lining the road to my capital. My people lived in fear of my wrath, but under my merciless guardianship, Wallachia at last knew security. Yet always the Ottoman snake slithered at our borders, their insatiable hunger for new conquests driving them westward. In 1462, the Sultan himself led an immense army to finally crush my defiant resistance. And on the night of their vanguard's arrival outside my mountain fortress, my mortal existence was extinguished. I had ridden out to assess the size of this new threat when I was set upon by a creature of supernatural origins. one of the undying immortal monsters of ancient lore. Though my military prowess was unmatched, I was no match for this demon's unearthly speed and savagery. As my life's blood pooled crimson in the snow, the creature made an unthinkable offer: to join its unholy brethren and taste the infinite power of immortality. In that moment, with eternal damnation itself beckoning, I made an ungodly choice. I let the filthy, vampiric essence drain my body of its last precious drops of mortality, only to be reborn as one of the cunning undead. A vampire, a true Dracula, destined to live on through the ages. The agonizing transformation ripped apart every fiber of my being, only to forge it anew, with a strength and sentience beyond human reckoning. I awoke, gasping, every sight and sound magnified 1,000-fold, possessed of supernatural speed and resilience. Yet eclipsing all was the mindless, ravenous thirst, an insatiable hunger for the very essence of life, blood. Unleashed upon an unsuspecting world, I began my reign of eternal dominion and retribution. I returned to the smoldering ruins of my mountain fortress, only to find betrayal had consumed all. My people, misled by the treacherous whispers of Byzantine conspirators and Ottoman sympathizers, had turned on their prince. Furious at such unforgivable perfidy, I enacted a horrendous vengeance. Stalking into the village astride my terrified warhorse, I descended upon them with an unholy wrath. I painted the streets in a crimson flood, my vampiric talons lashing out to eviscerate any who crossed my path. By the coming dawn, the ground ran black with the vile puddles of their impure bloodline. An entire generation of traitors was extinguished in a single night of unholy massacre. Their pitiful cries for mercy fell upon the deaf ears of the damned. My thirst for vengeance could not be slaked, nor could the unearthly thirst that now possessed me be satisfied by mere villagers. From the ruins of my former realm, I cast a crimson gaze westward to the fertile lands of greater European civilization. For centuries I moved like a malevolent specter through the shadows of history. My reign as the king undead was unbroken by the passing eras of man's mortal epochs. Whole dynasties bloomed and were cut down by my immortal machinations, with each generation falling under my supernatural thrall like armored wheat before a scythe. In the guise of a Roman boyar, I inspired Attila's bloodlust and his scorched path of ruin through the heart of Europe's fading empire. In the chaotic aftermath, I pulled the diaphanous strings of the medieval church and its ceaseless maneuverings against the Arians, Cathars, and other scapegoats of faith. Like some unnameable plague, I brought the very stones of Constantinople's glittering romanzia to shuddering collapse. Always I stalked the night as an unseen marauder, parleying with princes, seeding conflicts, and harvesting the blood taxes of those eras into an ever deeper reserve of power from which to slake my vampiric thirst. Over the centuries, my erudition in the blackest of arts blossomed in tandem with my mastery over death's dread realm. Yet no matter my dominion of shadow and immortality, some spark of yearning for the life I had forsaken flickered deep within. An embittered longing for the warmth of the sun, for the bonds of human connection I could no longer embrace. For eons, my reign of eternal night seemed unstoppable. But even an immortal force such as myself could not foresee the threat that emerged in the waning years of the 19th century. A cabal of mortals led by the accursed Professor Abraham Van Helsing began unraveling the truth behind the veil of my existence. Their pursuit was relentless, haunting my movements across England with an infernal tenacity. No sooner had I tasted the sweet nectar of life from a new prey than Van Helsing's hunters would descend, wild men dedicated to my destruction. Many times we clashed, their feeble armaments holding mere annoyance for my unholy flesh as I scattered them like husks in the wind. Yet their true weapon was none other than the gentle Mina Harker. Pure of heart and soul, she was the antithesis of my corrupt immortality. Her very presence weakened my vampiric vigors, while her radiant courage flamed forth like a searing brand against the ancient darkness I represented. Our clashes became increasingly perilous and desperate as Van Helsing's insight into my vulnerabilities grew. I concluded that the only path was to draw the woman into my lair of immortal damnation, to extinguish her light by making her my eternal bride of darkness. The battle ceased not until the very doors of my ancestral soil, where I attended to finally subjugate her will to my own. But in that moment, the tides of fate took an unexpected turn. As my fangs neared her throat, her innocent gaze pierced what putrid shreds of soul still fluttered in my remorseless being. In her eyes, I saw reflected the horror I had become, the lives uncounted I had ruined in my endless pursuit of timeless power and deceit. For a flickering instant, the dream of warmth and humanity that had seeded my first damnation long ago flickered once more. It was that moment's hesitation, that brittle crack in my facade of immortal monstrosity, while I was frozen in horrified realization at the evil I had wrought over the centuries. Van Helsing's team struck with their blades and holy weapons. I roared in agony as I felt my very immortality unraveling, the dark powers that made me undead slowly consumed by sacred flames. Yet even worse than the mystical fires devouring my unholy flesh was the single piercing pang of infinite regret that stabbed the last remnants of the human soul I had forsaken long ago. In what seemed like a blink of an eye, my eternal conquest, my supposed invincible reign of evil, was put to an end. The impregnable defenses of my immortality crumbled and collapsed as if razed by a holy storm from within. When the smoke settled, a husk of my former self lay smoldering at Mina's feet. Rather than burning what remained, Van Helsing's men hastily gathered my charred body and drove a blessed stake through my heart. To their eyes, I seemed forever vanquished, the stake protruding from my chest, like the fatal blow that slays all vampire undead. With solemn rites, they prepared to entomb what they thought was my eternal rest. My remains were transferred to a consecrated coffin, lined with wolfsbane and soils from hallowed church grounds. The coffin was then sealed and lowered into the crypt beneath my castle estate in Transylvania. Helsing did not follow his full instincts this night, and one day that will be his demise. But for now, my vampiric will was merely slumbering, reconstituting very slowly from the ripe flesh beneath my burned skin. My soulless vessel still remained, and I shall regrow what was once my all-powerful being. Suddenly, I recollected the moment of that night on the mountain with the creature of legend that granted my rebirth. This crypt for which I lay is that same cave so long ago. Now I understand. My dreaded reign had elapsed, but it would only be a matter of time before circumstance or ignorance allowed the barest glint of life force to reignite the inferno that is my insatiable thirst for vitality and vengeance. Somewhere beyond the veil of death, I can still taste the sweet memory of Mina's immortal touch. Her purity nearly broke my soul's damnation during our fatal embrace. I will never forget the grace that nearly redeemed me. When my undying hunger returns in full, lusting for her radiance to complete my dark bridehood will be my galvanizing force. No crypt can contain me forever, and the world shall inevitably witness my raw resurrection. The one true Lord of eternal night will reclaim his unholy dominion, and I will create more. I will create children of the night.